My name is Thanos, and today I am in the Tether Vault, surrounded by 20 superheroes to debate the Thanos snap. Let's go. My next claim is, suffering is the universe's natural state.
Suffering is not inevitable. I have traveled across the cosmos and witnessed civilizations that transcended suffering entirely through innovation, cooperation, and spiritual evolution. Your assumption that collapse is mathematically certain blinds you to the infinite variations of possibility. You met a dying universe and pulled the trigger to end its misery. But you were not a doctor. You were an assassin who mistook the patient for already dead. The universe was not dying, it was changing. And change requires time. What you call merciful acceleration, I call the murder of potential.
Your examples are exceptions that prove the rule, surfer. Yes, some civilizations transcend, but for everyone that does, 10,000 collapse into violence and desperation. You speak of infinite possibilities, but I have calculated finite probabilities. The universe was entering its terminal phase. Civilizations were cannibalizing each other for scraps. Suffering was exponential and accelerating. I provided what no transcendence or innovation could provide, certainty of survival. Not everyone survives, but half do. Under your optimistic model, virtually none survive in recognizable form.
Certainty about the future is always illusion, Thanos. You measured suffering and found it unacceptable. But you did not measure hope. You did not quantify the infinite paths that beings might have discovered. You calculated only one variable, resource consumption, and ignored every other factor that makes life worth living. A universe where half of all hope dies is not saved, it is diminished. You provided survival, yes, but survival of what? If consciousness itself becomes cynical and diminished, if hope dies with half the population, then the survivors inherit a universe spiritually devastated by your mercy. That is worse than any collapse.
You offer future transcendence while they suffer present agony. I eliminated that false dichotomy. Now the survivors face actual resources instead of hoping for them. Yes, some hope died with half the population. But so did desperation, hunger, and warfare. The survivors do not inherit spiritual devastation. They inherit abundance for the first time. Their hope is now grounded in reality instead of fantasy. You preserved hope by preserving misery. I preserved life by eliminating the conditions that make life unbearable. My next claim is, love itself is the problem. Beings love their families and hoard resources for them. Beings love their nations and wage war for them. Love is the root of all conflict.
Love causes conflict. Love also causes sacrifice, heroism, and the willingness to die for something greater than self. You wanted to eliminate love to eliminate war, but you also eliminated the capacity for beings to care about each other. The survivors face a universe where 50% of those they love are simply gone. That is not transcendence of love. That is trauma that will haunt their civilization for 10,000 years. You did not solve the love problem. You weaponized loss itself.
You misunderstand transcendence, Thor. I did not eliminate love. I eliminated the scarcity that makes love possessive. When beings fight for limited resources, love becomes tribal. It becomes protect mine at the expense of yours. But with half the population and twice the resources per being, love can finally become universal. Beings no longer need to hoard for their families, because their family's survival is guaranteed. They can finally extend compassion to strangers without fearing it will starve their children. Yes, trauma exists in the immediate aftermath, but that trauma is temporary.
You ignore human nature, Thanos. Beings do not become more compassionate when they have more. They become complacent. They forget scarcity and become wasteful. They hoard more. They create new hierarchies. The survivors of your snap will not become enlightened. They will become indifferent to the suffering that remains. They will tell themselves their 50% loved ones matter more than the dead. They will rebuild tribal structures within months. Your reset does not transcend love.
At least the mathematical explosion of suffering has been halted. You believe humans cannot change, cannot transcend, cannot choose differently. Then you are condemning yourself to eternal recurrence of collapse. My snap breaks that cycle by forcing reset. Whether your species rises or falls again is no longer cosmic inevitability. It becomes choice. I have given you choice through elimination of scarcity. What you choose to do with it is your responsibility, not mine. My next claim is, Wakanda hoards the secret to sustainable civilization while the universe burns. A classic example of Earth being selfish.
Yes, we kept our technology hidden. We did so because the world was not ready. Nations would have used vibranium as a weapon. They would have made it into nuclear arms, into tools of domination. Wakanda's silence was not selfishness. It was responsible stewardship of power that could destroy the world. You claim we should have shared. You ignore that sharing without wisdom is worse.
Your logic is precisely why the universe needed the snap, T'Challa. You kept vibranium hidden for their protection. You decided which nations were ready. You positioned yourself as the universe's parent, deciding what knowledge your children could handle. That is not wisdom.
Yes, Wakanda had advantages. With those advantages came responsibility. We were building a path that could elevate all nations without destroying them. We were preparing the world to receive what we had learned. Your snap interrupted that generational project. You killed Wakandan scientists who could have adapted our technology for global use. You killed our healers who could have taught medicine beyond what the world knew. You killed our philosophers who could have shared wisdom. You did not create equality. You created a void.
You cannot elevate others while remaining elevated above them. Equality cannot be gifted from the superior to the inferior. It must be claimed. The snap forced claim. Yes, you lost mentors. But the survivors also lost masters. They lost beings who decided what they could handle. Now they must decide for themselves. Some will fail. Some will rise beyond what your mentorship would have allowed. That is the cost and the benefit of freedom. My next claim is I believe in finality. The universe does not need another chance to reform its failures.
People reform when given actual alternatives. Institutions revert when their power structures remain intact. The solution is transformation of systems, not elimination of people. I have seen the worst criminals in Gotham become productive citizens when given purpose, community, and opportunity. Your assumption that failure is inherent rather than circumstantial blinds you to what is actually possible. The universe does not need purification through death.
You operate in Gotham, where you personally can mentor reform Batman. But expand your philosophy to universal scale. How do you reform Darkseid? How do you transform a being whose entire nature is conquest? Redemption assumes that beings fundamentally want to change, but many civilizations are locked into competitive structures that make redemption impossible at their scale. You offer individual redemption to individual criminals. I offer systemic redemption.
The survivors of your snap have no memory of the mistakes that led to collapse. They are infants in a universe they do not understand. They will stumble blind into the same traps that destroyed their predecessors. What I do in Gotham is maintain continuity of knowledge while changing behavior. I preserve the good of the past while eliminating the destructive. Your method throws away wisdom along with waste. The survivors inherit not a clean slate. They inherit amnesia.
Yes, some may repeat old mistakes, but some will transcend them precisely because they do not carry the psychological weight of historical failure. A child who knows no history is free to build beyond what history allowed. That is not amnesia. Each of them represented the fundamental flaw in heroic thinking, the belief that noble intentions and clever solutions can overcome the mathematical laws of the universe. They cannot. I have studied countless civilizations. I have watched worlds collapse. I have seen the pattern repeat endlessly. The snap was not cruelty, it was the cure.